Here's a topical video. Since Marvel removed their Netflix exclusive content almost 2 months ago, I'm here to talk about The Defenders. The first time I watched this show, I gave it a pass on how bad it was, for the same reason I initially gave the Justice League movie a pass. I wanted to see these guys team up, so I was willing to look the other way when the show lacked any kind of quality at all. It was cool seeing Iron Fist and Luke Cage fight, and Daredevil meet Jessica Jones, and those things still pushed my eruption button this time around. But watching a second time, oof, this show is not good. I think some of my problems with this show have their roots in Iron Fist and Daredevil, with inconsistencies with the hand. But it's been almost 2 years since I watched some of those seasons, and since I was on a deadline of watching the show before it was removed from Netflix, I didn't have time to watch almost 40 hours of the previous relevant shows to get a better feel for the threat these heroes faced in this season. So anything I suggest here will likely fly in the face of how the hand was portrayed in Daredevil and Iron Fist, but that's fine, since the hand in the show did that too. If these guys are after immortality, why are they peddling heroin at Rand Enterprises in Iron Fist? Whatever. My first problem is that the threat of the hand is connected to Daredevil and Iron Fist, but has nothing to do with Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. Ideally, the villains Jessica and Luke faced in their own shows would have had connections to the hand, even if the connections weren't as overt as they were in Daredevil and Iron Fist. Then it could feel more natural for these four to come together because they have a common enemy. Sure, the city is in danger, these four are heroes protect the innocent, I get that. But the show is having to do a lot of legwork to justify these four teaming up, since the threat wasn't properly seeded in all four shows leading up to this. The only reason all four of our leads are involved is because these are the four Marvel Netflix heroes, so they have to all team up. But that's weak, and since they were planning some of this stuff in advance, like Nobu wanting to dig a big hole as far back as Daredevil Season 1, they could have planned all of this out a little better from the start. Even with no connections to the hand in Jessica Jones or Luke Cage, they did a fine enough job bringing them in. Jessica Jones is a private investigator. She investigates a case that ropes her into this conspiracy to destroy the city. I buy that. Misty Knight asks Luke Cage to talk to a kid who's been hired by the hand to clean up some bodies. It's fine, but I can't help think it could have been better if these two already had some beef with the hand. I don't know how you would do that, and since I liked Kilgrave and Diamondback, I don't know if this would actually improve those shows, just tie this in with those shows a little better. I ask myself questions like, why did the hand attack Kunlun if they are originally from Kunlun? What is the basis of the conflict between the hand and the chaste? Stick says the conflict boils down to the five fingers of the hand want immortality, and the elders of Kunlun saw that as an aberration. That is incredibly lame. Who cares if these guys are immortal? It's what they plan to do with their immortal lives that would be cause for concern. But apparently this war that's gone on for maybe thousands of years with thousands of people on both sides has to do with five people who want to live forever. How are the chaste connected to Kunlun? Stick knows who Iron Fist is, but Stick isn't immortal. Do the Kunlunians have agents on Earth? It appears so, but it seemed to be a pretty insular city from what we saw in Iron Fist Season 1. The problem is the chaste were mysteriously hinted at in Daredevil Season 1, and here, oh, they're all dead, sorry. So any answers we get come from this guy the show says is incredibly unreliable. If Kunlun only appears on Earth once every 15 years, how did they keep in contact with the chaste? How does Stick know anything about the Iron Fist, even if he's been out of Kunlun for months? If the chaste is a global operation, which stands to reason since the hand is, and until the hand sent Elektra to kill all of the chaste were keeping the hand at bay. So if they're a global operation, why couldn't the chaste spare any of their own to protect Kunlun's gates from the hand once they knew Iron Fist wasn't doing his job? Since Stick knew about Danny, and since Kunlun was somehow communicating with the chaste, it seems the chaste allowed Kunlun to be destroyed. In the first episode, Alexandra, leader of the hand, tells Elektra she will get used to watching cities fall. Why? The reason they're burrowing beneath New York is to find a dragon skeleton so they can live a little longer. I've already noted how stupid immortality being their end goal is, but why do more cities need to fall? Why did more cities fall in the past? Were there dragons buried beneath those cities as well? Are you talking like in another 1,000 years when your cancer comes back you'll destroy Seattle to get the dragon skeleton buried there? Or do you have some other goal beyond living forever and that's why you plan to destroy more cities? If so, it would be nice to know what that plan is. Maybe they plan to use the hand again after this season, but they wanted to give us a little bit of a breather for a few seasons before bringing them back. But since everything got canceled just 2 years later, any lingering plot threads will likely linger forever. So don't tease us with more of what the hand planned to do. Just lay all your cards on the table right now. You can still use them later if your corner of the universe doesn't get plugged, and you just won't have the mystery of what they're up to fall back on if if you do. One thing that surprised me was how much time we spend repositioning our heroes to act more heroic. We've had a season each to establish Luke, Jessica, and Danny, and 2 seasons for Matt. All of them should be firmly on their superheroic feet, but Danny's purpose was protecting Kun-Lun, which is taken from him. Even though he's proactively fighting the Hand, he still lacks purpose. Watching the Daredevil Season 2 finale, I had no idea Matt was giving up being Daredevil, but here he says it's good he gave that life up, but he also misses it. In addition to him investigating what's going on and interacting with the other Defenders, he has to slowly get back in the saddle. Jessica fights tooth and nail against taking on more cases, until she's threatened, piquing her curiosity. Of our principal characters, Luke is the only one who knows what he wants and is going after it. He still wants to help the people of Harlem. To be fair, Danny is helping people by fighting the Hand, who endanger the little guy, and Matt is helping in a way he thinks is best, as lawyer Matt Murdock. But why we had to spend time on both of them readjusting themselves as heroes confuses me. Thematically, all 4 characters feel lost. Danny has no purpose. Jessica, in Trish's words, turned her victory over Kilgrave into a defeat. Luke wants to take the fight to his enemies, but they're laying low. Matt wants to get back into a life his friends tell him is unhealthy. Thematically, it works that they're all looking for what to do with their lives, but it takes up unnecessary screen time for Matt to decide to be Daredevil when we already spent 2 seasons with him as Daredevil. Here's what I do. Instead of Matt throwing away his identity as Daredevil, he's gone in the other direction. He still takes on some legal cases, but he's devoted even more of his time to being Daredevil. In the show, he says he doesn't regret his past actions, but he does regret that it pushed his friends away. Karen says it didn't, but yes, it did. Nelson and Murdock fell apart because of Matt's inability to balance his lives as Matt and Daredevil. So if Karen and Foggy have already moved on, what's the point of Matt ending his time as Daredevil? He's pushed them away, okay, so be it. Can't undo that now, might as well fully commit to what I'm doing. Each of our protagonists will be pushing themselves harder because in their minds, they failed in some way and people suffered as a result. Harlem has become more dangerous with nobody to protect its people, and Luke thinks maybe if I had been more careful about my past coming to light, I could have been here and I could have helped instead of being locked up in prison. Instead of Jessica trying to push cases away, she's buried herself even deeper in her investigations. She blames herself for Hope Schwartzman's death because she didn't handle Kilgrave in a more permanent fashion years earlier. You wouldn't have to change much with Danny. He allowed Kun-Lun to be destroyed, so now he's doubling his efforts in the war against the Hand. But he's beginning to push Colleen away in the process, much like how Matt pushed his friends away in pursuit of his life as Daredevil. Jessica is already misanthropic, so you wouldn't need to change anything about her character to parallel her teammates. And since Luke and Claire had a falling out in Luke Cage Season 2 that came completely out of nowhere, you could say Luke's determination to be there for Harlem will get in the way of his and Claire's budding romance, which can then be paid off in a different way in Luke Cage Season 2. In Episode 4, Matt, Jessica, and Luke are all at different stages of resisting the idea of a team-up. So in terms of storytelling, them thinking they have to push their friends away to live this kind of life can be the lie they each have to overcome, or don't overcome. They realize teamwork is vital by the end of this season, and then Matt dies in the finale. Matt spends most of Daredevil Season 3 thinking it would be for the best if his friends think that he is dead. His lesson he learned could be, even with me and my friends trying to save the world, Elektra died again. In Luke Cage Season 2, Luke eventually becomes the new owner of Harlem's Paradise, which the show insists is a dark turn for his character. Maybe he blames himself for Matt's death. This team-up thing was a bad idea. If we had all just gone our separate ways, Matt would still be alive. So part of what leads to him taking the fruit from Satan is his desire to help people from a position of power, which he felt like he didn't have when he was in prison and Harlem was in danger without him. Even with his physical powers, there was nothing he could do to save Matt. But as he yelled at Danny for not using his own wealth and status to help people, Luke now believes he can use his new status to do some real good. Meanwhile, Danny took away a different lesson from Matt's death. Seeing him sacrifice his life for the city left Danny with a new purpose, which he didn't have at the start of this season. And in Iron Fist Season 2, we see Danny trying to amend old conflicts with enemies who could be friends. It doesn't exactly work, but this could be because Danny doesn't want to push his friends away. Despite everything that's happened, he still sees Davos and Joy as his friends. Jessica, she could still be perpetually in a bad mood, but she might be more willing to open up to Malcolm and Trish than she was before. Maybe she makes an attempt to have more of a cooperative partnership with the NYPD, thinking something like the death of John Raymond wouldn't have happened if she had been more forthcoming with Misty Knight. Doing this, you don't have to waste as much time with characters like Jessica and especially Matt resisting proactivity. You want your characters to be proactive, and even if there's 4 of them and 2 of them are proactive, if the other 2 aren't, that's still going to slow your pacing down a little. It's the end of episode 4 when our protagonists are all finally on the same page, and then they still hit a few bumps in the road after that. You might compare this to the Avengers, where they're not all on the same page until Agent Coulson dies, which is roughly 2/3 of the way into the movie. But the difference is, it's easier to sit through 2.5 hours than it is to sit through 2 hours where Matt Murdock is still hesitant about returning to a life we came here to see. Have all of our characters fully committed to the heroic life, and you can fill up screen time with their investigation against the Hand taking twists and turns, and their resistance to working with each other. Jessica's convinced it's her fault Hope Swatman died. Matt feels responsible for Elektra's death. They don't want partners or friends because partners and friends might end up dead. Honestly, a lot of how they came together works pretty well. Even with Matt pursuing his daredeviling, you can still have Foggy trying to keep his friendship alive with Matt, and giving Matt cases he can't take at Hogarth, Chow, and Benowitz, which pushes him toward Jessica. That all works fine. So that's about it I would change for the heroes. On to the villains. I've already mentioned the idea of dragon skeletons, which give immortality, being what the Hand is after, is incredibly lame. You've been hinting at this for 3 years, and this is the best you can come up with? These guys don't want to die, and that's enough to start an interstellar war? I mean, I guess it's interstellar, not sure where Kunlun goes, but it's not on Earth. At least in the comics they leave Earth. Bakuto and Madame Gao are at war in Iron Fist Season 1, and now they're okay with each other, again because none of this was planned out in advance. Like I said, I didn't have enough time to watch 2 seasons of Daredevil and a season of Iron Fist, so I have no idea if my ideas will fit with what we found out about the Hand in those seasons. So I'm gonna cut myself a little slack and try to come up with something better than dragon skeletons. What if the Hand want to summon some kind of eldritch demon to rule over humanity because they've watched humanity fail for so many thousands of years, they're tired of it, and they believe the demons they worship will do a better job of ruling over Earth. They've tried guiding civilizations with their wisdom only to watch us puny mortals ruin everything time and again. They're tired of it, and they want something that will keep us in line. Heck, if you want to keep Alexandra's sickness driving her, maybe she wants to revive the ancient god through her physical form, like Deacon Frost transforming into the blood god La Magra. The elders of Kunlun naturally don't want the Hand to succeed because they interpret the ancient texts differently than the Hand. The Hand sees their god as more of a strict but benevolent guardian, while the rest of Kunlun sees it as eternally hungry, and if unleashed on Earth, it will consume everything, then move on to another world. Or, what if the Hand aren't from Kunlun at all? In the Ed Brubaker Matt Fraction Iron Fist comics, multiple cities are connected to Earth, but only appear on this plane of reality every so often. You have Kunlun, and there's the Kingdom of Spiders and Ping Lai. Maybe the war between Kunlun and the Hand is all about self-preservation. The Five Fingers have been stranded on Earth for centuries, and they want to go home, but they can't because somehow Kunlun is the only one of the 7 capitals of heaven to maintain its connection to Earth. The Hand attacked Kunlun in Iron Fist Season 1 because they want to sever its connection to Earth so their own city can come back to Earth and they can reunite with their friends and families. The Kunlunians want to stop this because if the Hand city comes back to Earth, it'll usher in a millennia of darkness as the rest of the Hand's people will invade and take over the planet, or so they think. They're doing heroin stuff with Wilson Fisk as they need resources for their war with the Chase, but the drugs, their alliance with Fisk is completely meaningless to them. Maybe they're digging big holes in New York because they're not sure if their home city will return to Earth where Kunlun used to be, or maybe since they attacked Kunlun, it hasn't left Earth, so they need a new location for their city to emerge on Earth, and New York City drew the short straw. Army from Another World might seem passé with how often we see that in superhero stories, but despite how much I complained about the external threat we got in the show, that really isn't the most important conflict your hero should go through. In the first Iron Man movie, it's important Tony defeats Obadiah because he has a big scary armor and currently poses a threat to Pepper Potts and those agent guys, but also emotionally, Obadiah controls the company and represents the old Tony that new Tony wants to get away from. Even if you didn't consciously pick up on that, the internal conflict represented by the whiz-bang punches and explosions was more interesting than the surface level stuff that draws you in initially. So even as underwhelming and anticlimactic and generally moronic dragon skeletons make us live longer, being the thrust of the war that draws our 4 heroes together, it was the lack of any real consequence this show had on our characters that felt more disappointing. I already talked about how this season should have drawn on what came before and influenced what came after to make the events of this season feel more important to our characters. It's almost like having a connected universe like this, you should actually have it be connected beyond quick little cameos here and there. That's all I have for this one. I know I probably should have tackled this one back when people could still go and watch Defenders, but let's be honest, you probably didn't want to torture yourself like that again. I'll be back next week to talk about something else. Until then, have a good one.